Welcome to B Plot Podcast, the podcast where we take a look at some of the biggest movies from days gone by. Ignore it. Look at the ones that came out on the exact same day. It's our Oscar special. That as much as anything that Sam and I do can be described as special. It's the Oscar special where we look at the Oscar movies that are going to come out and vie for the Oscar, for the statue in 2021. This time around, Mank. Sam, do you want to take us quickly through Mank so that we can discuss it?
Let's go. So Mank is the story of Herman J. Mankiewicz, the writer who co-wrote Citizen Kane with Orson Welles. And this is a 1930s style movie, semi-biographical about his life, lots of liberties taken. But it's really just that as he goes to kind of uncover Hollywood elites using their power to influence elections.
We have Gary Oldman in the title role as Herman Mankiewicz, and we have Charles Dance in the role of a W.R. Hearst, a newspaper tycoon from the early 20th century. And we have Amanda Seyfried as his mistress,
and also as the actress Marion Davis.
As the actress Marion Davis, thank you. And she kind of, to understand this, you kind of have to have a little bit of knowledge about Citizen Kane. So Herman Mankiewicz writes the screenplay Citizen Kane. It kind of shows the travails of his life through Hollywood in the 30s, and he writes Citizen Kane, and it's very clearly based on W.R. Hearst and his life, and it's the struggles that Herman Mankiewicz has writing the screenplay, along with Orson Welles instead of Orson Welles.
Well, the film, So the film presents it as all Mankiewicz, and which there's a lot of there. Of course, that's the whole thing, right? This is a subject that's been revisited, I think, every year since Citizen Kane, in some form or another. But I did a bit of research because I was just interested. Film historians, again, take their word as you will. It seems to be that a lot of the flair and a lot of the sort of set-piecey, witty gusto of Citizen Kane comes from Orson Welles, but a lot of the fundamental storytelling and building blocks come from Mankiewicz.
Yeah. And the Mank itself, directed by David Fincher, from a screenplay that his dad wrote, kind of follows that broad arc. It at one point, I think the key to the film is a line where he says that 2 hours isn't enough to capture a man's whole life. You can only leave an impression of it. Yeah, and I thought it was actually really, that's quite nice. It's trite, but it's quite nice. I like that. And Mank tries to do the same. So you jump between two timelines in this film. You jump between him actually furiously writing the screenplay for Citizen Kane, and you jump between his life in Hollywood in the 1930s and him kind of rubbing up against people like Louis B. Mayer from MGM and rubbing up against W.R. Hearst, and just him him living in Hollywood during that time, during the kind of the one of the first golden ages, whatever it was. Sam, what did you think? Just before we get deep into it.
I think it's a weird one because it's David Fincher, and I kind of strapped in. My attitude going into this movie was, I feel like I have to watch this movie. And I was
well, you did, Sam, because we were going to discuss it. Yeah. You did have to watch it.
But a lot of some of the films we do, I'm excited to watch. This isn't one I was particularly excited about. And for the first half hour, I will say I was quite bored. And then it got me in a way, but it never held on to me throughout the whole movie. So I just felt like that, to go back to that, 2 hours is only enough to leave an impression of a man. By the time I'd finished the film, I was sort of like, what's the extra 12 minutes for then? Because I really don't feel like I've gotten anything. And it is the fact that the character Mankiewicz he's characterized, but there's no character there. That was what I left feeling. What about you?
I understand that. It was one of those movies where I was kind of looking forward to it being done. so that I could talk about it with you.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a good movie. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say that. That's unfair. It's good, like lowercase good. But it is ultimately kind of, it kind of slips through your fingers like sand. Like there's nothing really to hold on to. And obviously David Fincher didn't, I don't know if he tried to do this, but it does seem that the movie almost exactly mirrors that debate about Citizen Kane. Because the movie is, with the exception that it's not written very well, but the direction is incredible. Really, really like interesting things that he does with different stocks and different kind of. No, it's all digital, so it's different kind of treatments of. Because it's not a deep black and white. It's kind of like I don't know how to say this word. A simulacrum. Like
I don't know what that is.
It's like It looks like a black and white, but it's not quite black and white. So you can tell that it's been made in the recent past.
Yeah.
But yeah, he leaves like little pieces of flair, like the little cigarette burns that you would get from the changing of reels.
The cigarette burns, that almost annoyed me in a way after a while. Like the first time I was like, oh, that's cute. And then it's a 2-hour, 12-minute movie. I was like, I get it. I get it. And there's so much treatment has been done to the film to make it look like a 1930s movie, but because those effects aren't as good as the kind of lack of effects that they're trying to recreate, a lot of the time it just felt a bit uncanny valley for me.
That's more than fair. I think it's more than fair. This movie also felt a little bit. It felt a little bit middlebrow.
Like you know what I mean? Like it wants you to feel smart, but none of us are smart.
Yeah, if it went a level higher, I think that would be interesting. Perhaps a bit more alienating, but maybe more interesting for whatever it was. If it, it was trying to pull off a concept that's more difficult. If it was a level below and it went dumber and was more entertaining, maybe that would be more fun. That would be more fun too. But in the end, it's kind of stuck between this really like fucking Wednesday afternoon warm mayonnaise kind of movie where it's like it's clever sometimes, but not nearly as clever as it thinks. And it's also I'm not nearly as clever as the movie thinks.
Yeah.
So I end up feeling alienated a lot of the time.
Well, this is the other thing, man. I feel like I don't have a massive in-depth knowledge of Hollywood in this period. I've seen Citizen Kane. I did film studies at college, right? I saw Citizen Kane in film studies at college. I don't remember. I should probably rewatch Citizen Kane after this because I feel like it will help recontextualize this movie. But it does feel like half of the film is just 2-minute Easter eggs of, oh, and look, this person was alive at this time. And all these little references to what was around where I'm like, I don't know if this is for Netflix or if this is for like private showings just in Hollywood. Do you know what I mean?
Look, it does. What I did find interesting is, and this will be a kind of theme throughout. We're talking about these kind of these Oscar movies. Is why was this nominated? I think this was nominated, obviously to throw. I think of the offerings that Netflix had, maybe throw this one a bone. Because you have to kind of, it seems at this point like ignoring Netflix is a fool's errand. But I was really interested in the depiction of Hollywood as a kind of force for bad.
Yeah.
The depiction of Hollywood as a right-wing force. So just to give a little bit of background there is at least one of the timelines is set set back to the backdrop, set along the backdrop of a government. I think it's called a gubernatorial election to elect the government, not the government, the governor, and this is for Upton Sinclair, a kind of Bernie Sanders style for the people, progressive Democrat slash socialist, and there's on the right hand side there's Frank Merriam, who's the GOP side, the conservative side. And Hollywood backs the conservative side. Something that would not happen today. Never happen today. That ship has sailed. It might switch back around, but it would never happen today. And so I think there is, from Fincher's point of view, from our 2020 point of view, a kind of like an idea of looking back at Hollywood, how how much it's changed, but how in many ways it's still the same.
I do want to rewind on that though, because Hollywood, the big six, this is the thing, is even at this time in the 30s, they're posing as liberal. They're still posing. They're not making conservative propaganda for the time until they are. It's like, so okay, just it's a key plot point of the movie, spoiler alert, is where this tips over is Mankiewicz finds out that the MGM have been giving first-time directors an opportunity to get a credit by staging real news interviews with people on the street as propaganda for the conservative elect. And that's kind of the tipping point, is like, oh, you're using fiction. You've got so good at replicating real world news that you're making your own up. And when we look at, like, say, Fox as, you know, 20th Century Fox, man. It's like, that's all Murdoch. It is still happening today.
I do think this is a different version, a different view of Hollywood from what we have now. I do, even at least to itself, Hollywood tries to present itself as quite progressive and quite liberal. The level to which being in Hollywood and making movies does have any sort of political agency and being a political project, I think that is interesting. I think that is an interesting subject, and a subject that Hollywood doesn't really reckon with anymore. There's a kind of status quo, and that's kind of accepted, and it's to the left of it and it's to the right of it. But the question of how should we, that's not a question that anyone really asks. Not in the art as we receive it, at least, you know. So you can talk about things like income inequality and gender inequality and sexism and homophobia, but the question of whether or not or how you probably should is not really a question that's brought up at all. And I think that is interesting that the movie kind of moves into that phase. It's not necessarily the whole project, but it does spend a lot of time there. I wanted to ask you, did you actually look at some of, because they are available, those newsreel footages that that MGM made?
Yeah.
They're really fascinating.
Yeah.
They're really interesting, because here I am sitting 80 years later. I know that it is propaganda, but they kind of scanned, to me, as just people giving real opinions.
Yeah, they check out. I watched a couple of side-by-sides as well, because I was like, it's done fairly faithfully in the film as to what the propaganda was. And I think, but this is the other thing, I think where this film shies away in plot from where it should steer into is like, that was when I started getting roped in, when I was like, oh, there's actually like this really interesting kind of like political, what's going on undercurrent here. And the film never really pays it off. And because it doesn't, I think that is the core crux of it. It just doesn't really follow through on any theme in terms of, is this about an alcoholic writer doing his best work? Is this about like a political change? Is this about the depression? And it doesn't really come through. And the reason why I had to dig and do a bit of research, because like a lot of the stuff about Herman J. Mankiewicz being like a good dude isn't true either. There's a scene. The scene where they're having a big party. I can't remember whether it's Marion's award or the election party or whatever, but I looked up a bit of history. It's the only actual like liberal socialist in the room was Charlie Chaplin in one of those party scenes. And I did feel quite manipulated by, there is a bit where Mankiewicz's nurse doesn't want him to get booze. He's supposed to be in a dry house in a dry state, right? So he's been withheld from alcohol. He's got this German nurse. The other nurse is like, I'm going to snitch on you for smuggling all this booze in. And then she goes to the German nurse, and the German nurse is like, look, we're German Jews. He saved like 100 of us from the village and brought us over here. And I was like, leaning in, this is interesting. What is this piece of history I don't know about? And it's all fabricated. And I was like, The most likable thing about the character, again, is like a footnote fiction rather than something that was actually in there. And I'm like, I think that's what holds it back, is there's no honesty in it.
I mean, I have to say, this is one of my big pet peeves in film in general. Something that Trial of the Chicago 7 also did quite egregiously.
Yeah, is it Save the Cat?
No, it's not Save the Cat. It's that when you include a throwaway line that is such a heavy topic or a heavy idea, but it's a kind of side street to the main movie. For example, in Trial of the Chicago 7, it's that woman being thrown on the floor and those men attempting to rape her.
Yeah.
That can't be scenery.
Yeah.
That can't be something to give a bit of color to a story. That's a whole story.
Yeah.
Same thing with what you just brought up there. You can't bring up offhandedly that this guy saved a bunch of Jews.
Yeah.
From the concentration camps. That's not an offhand. That's an entire... In fact, it is an entire movie. That's why we have Schindler's List.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
We just drilled down and made an entire film. So like I find that manipulative, like you said, and crass as well. It's crass to do something like that, especially if it isn't true.
Yeah,
especially if it isn't true.
And again, I think that's the avenue, because really the way we're seeing this movie is just we're seeing worse and worse events play out behind the scenes in Hollywood, and then the thing as audience that we're supposed to do with that information is go, and this is what Mankiewicz used to write Citizen Kane. But part of me's like, oh, it's like a 15-minute introduction to Citizen Kane, not necessarily like a kind of all over the place drama. And this is the thing, man. It's David Fincher, right? The guy's he is so good at what he does, but this feels like just a step too far away. For like, you look at Seven and Social Network, and it hit, like, you look at Fincher's other movies, and they're all so Zodiac. They're all so tight around what their theme or story is. They never really, when they stray with like such reason. And this didn't really feel. I left feeling like that film could have ended any point after the hour mark, and I'd have been like, yeah, I guess you were trying to say something.
Look, man, you know what I'm going to say? You know why my man got nominated? It's because this isn't a banger.
Because,
This is not entertaining.
No bangers.
If he made an entertaining movie that was more funny, more tense, more sex, my man would not even get near this nomination. And it's not, and I'm saying this because I know that he has the capacity to make fucking bangers after bangers. This is a guy who has in his discography, of his filmography, a guy has Seven, Fight Club, Zodiac, Social Network, and then he was like, all right, let me get some credibility up in here.
Yeah.
And he makes this largely dreary, again, middlebrow story about Hollywood that is neither here nor there, but is phenomenally made. I do think it looks great. Dude, middlebrow is the death of anything. I say this fully. If you're gonna make something, don't make it middlebrow. Make trash. Make trash. Make something that's just like genre fiction, that's just dumb, and everyone's like, boo. Or there's like outrageous things where people get shot all the time. Or make something really high art and like try and like rack up the BAFTAs. But don't make middlebrow things, man. That's really the death of anything.
Where do you think this ranks out of the films we've watched so far on the bid for an Oscar for Best Picture?
So at this point in time, we have The Father, for me, which is still number one. Number two, I think, is probably as a movie that I've already seen, but of the ones that we've seen, I would say this is number two. Number three, I would say, is Trial of the Chicago's. I would be shocked if this wins anything. I would be shocked.
There is one thing I think it deserves, but it's a double-edged sword, because for the music, the original score I thought was fucking brilliant. If anyone listening has played Cuphead, this movie is Cuphead in the background soundtrack. Everything sounds like it's from the 30s, like it's bands. It's mastered really nicely. But the other side of it is that they've tried to do the same thing with the dialogue. And because it's a Netflix movie and I'm not being told where to set my soundbar, it just all the dialogue was just like a strain to listen to because they've got a shitty TV. Yeah,
but you got the subtitles on, right? You don't watch.
No.
Oh man,
I can't watch if I can speak the language. I can't watch with subtitles, man.
See, something happened in my mind. I think a door opened and another one closed, where I can't watch anything without subtitles now.
Anything.
Even if it's English, I have to see it. I have to see the subtitles.
Bro, no, that's...
In fact, I get mad if I have to watch something live and there's no... I wait until the next day so I can watch it with the subtitles on. Just because I get too upset.
That's insane. I read faster than people can talk.
If the subtitles are done well, it's not an issue. And often, this is really what it is. As I'm fucking, I'm like a little piggy. I'm eating 9 times out of 10. And so I can't hear what they're saying over the sound of me chewing. And so I have to have the subtitles on.
See, I'm the other way. I can't see the subtitles because I'm too busy like half looking at my food.
Now, see, but then somewhere in between there, we should have enough, right? We should have enough of the movie in between those two deficiencies. Yeah. We should come up with enough. Look, that's Mank done. We keep checking it out. Let us know what you think of the Oscar movies on our Instagrams at Lincoln on the Mic and at Sam J. Golan. And we'll see you guys or speak to you guys next time.
Peace.